Very dear students and viewers, today I'm going to record a very important topic of written compositions, that is comprehension and Precis writing. And this is for the benefit of my BS students who are studying with me communication skills. It is also, in general, very much beneficial for the people who are attempting for written tests and examinations on competitive basis. They may also be having a little bit of benefit out of that. So let us have a start with the comprehension and Precis making activity, how one is required to do that. I may point out that in our society, students most of the time feel it very difficult, first of all, to answer the questions which are mostly given for the sake of comprehension at the end of the passage. They try mostly to answer the questions in the fashion as they have been doing in their matriculation studies, where they were mostly taught that they can select some part of the passage in the answer of the question and put it there, and possibly it was rewarded as well. This method is absolutely wrong, and same is the conception, rather, I should say, misconception about the making of the Precis that somehow some sentences of the main passage may be removed and the passage will be converted into Precis. Well, it's also a kind of myth. It's not possible to do so. Precis is quite unique skill and art that we need to learn. And it's also a very big point that no one should think that Precis making or comprehension can be done only by the intelligent people. I don't rule out the role of intelligence and role of dexterity and skill. But then again, it is not 100% the case. Everybody can learn. This is the art and the skill that can be acquired, that can be learned, and with the passage of time, one becomes very much expert in that as well. So let's have a start with the kind of thing we are going to have it. Let us first of all see what is the situation. It is the topic here, that is Precis and the comprehension. Let us enter into it and see how much we can have the kind of activity beneficial for us. Let us have a start, and for this purpose, the very first thing is the definition. Well, it cannot be defined in that way, as one can define number of other things, but still an effort can be made. For example, some of the writing material says that definition, a Precis is a clear, compact, logical summary of a passage. It preserves only the essential or important ideas of the original. Now, in this definition, we have one word that is clear, and then it becomes logical summary. Two, clear and logical summary. I mean, it's not possible that on the basis of compactness we may lose clarity, or on the basis of clarity we may not bring the compactness. If we can do these two things, definitely Precis can be formed out. Same is the case with the second definition. It's rather more clearer, I should say. It is a short version of a speech or a piece of writing that gives the main points of the idea. So first thing is again the short version, and then it is the main point or the main idea that needs to be talked about. And then another definition says that Precis is a short form of the text, which briefly gives only important parts. So it means again and again the thing is going to be important, or the main, or it can be the compactness that we can generate out of the given passage. So this is what the definition can say. I must say, out of all these definitions, we can evolve a very significant kind of example with the help of which one can understand what possibly Precis can be. I think most of my students have seen the dial of a watch, that the wristwatch, let us say, or the clock, let us say. And if you have been looking at the clock, you see at least two needles. One needle is that of the hours, and the needle is that of the minutes, whatever the needle may be. Even if the needle is there, that of the seconds. These needles sometimes are called as the arms of the watch. Whatever the case may be, every arm or the needle has two parts. One is the elongated long part, other one is the short part. So when any needle of the watch revolves or takes a full circle of the watch, two things are happening. that the elongated part of the needle is making a big circle, and the shortened, that is the other part of the needle, which is after the midpoint, that is short part of the needle, that is also making the full circle, but its area is reduced. Now this is what the press is going to be. So full circle of the needle of a clock is going to be the main passage, and the shorter part of the needle of a watch, or that of the arm of the watch, it also goes around the whole watch, but it covers very little area. So it is the précis of the passage. So in that way, one can understand that précis means actually that we need to cover everything, but in a very short place. At that time, it will become, similar circle to the big circle, the big part of the needle, and the précis will be done. So this example should go very smooth into the minds of the people, how they can do this type of précis. So if you have done so, definitely everybody will be regarded that a good précis. Let us see what more we should understand before we conduct making a précis. So the second slide that I want to show you people says that the first thing is to answer the questions which are mostly given at the end of the passage. The very first rule in order to answer the question is that one should repeat the question in the answer. For example, when was Pakistan established? Very simple answer can be 1947. But we should write that Pakistan was established in 1947. So half of the question is repeated. It means that while answering the question, we should repeat the question as well. Answer should be given in sentence, as I have done. Instead of saying 1947, I have said that Pakistan was established in 1947. The full sentence is there. And after that, the tense matter is also there. You should look at the tense of the question. Whatever the tense of the question is, regardless of the tense of the main passage, your answer should be in the same tense. For example, all the paragraph is in present and the question has come, what did the writer say? So you need to answer your question in the same tense that the writer said instead of saying the writer says. So it means that in the answer of the question, we need to maintain the tense of the question. And then it is the indirect speech that should come in our answers, because the direct speech is for the passage, it is not for the answers. And how can we say that we have understood and we have answered this question if we are maintaining the direct speech? So therefore, there should be indirect speech. For example, in the précis, there is a sentence which is in the direct speech. For example, the sentence is, he says, comma, inverted commas, I am a young person, inverted commas, close. Now, we cannot write in the same way in the answer. We will be writing, he told about his youthful time. That is the indirect speech. In the same way, this is very important that we should not repeat as far as possible the wording of the passage. We should try to write in our own words. That is, the creativity has to be there. Only then we can make it precise. Otherwise, it will go long and long. So it means that the repeating of the passage words or the sentences or the even phrases would not pay to us. We need to write it that way. It should be clear. I mean, the answer should clearly mention what it wants to mention, though it should be concise as well, maintaining these two things. So first of all, when we start our précis, we should try to go to the questions first of all. And in order to answer one question, we should read the question first rather than the passage. If the question is in our mind while reading the passage, we will be able to locate the place where the answer possibly is there. So that is why, first of all, the question should be read. And then if there's a situation sometime that there are no questions, and even then we are asked to write the précis of the passage, at that time the next coming slides would help us. Although if the questions are available, it makes the task even easier that we can convert our main passage into a precise summary of the passage. So let's go forward and see what are the other things that we can have a good benefit from. The other slide, for example, would tell us about some of the points of making of the précis, some of the rules. This slide is showing a lesser number of rules. Some of them would be in the next slide. Like, first of all, it is read carefully, then underlining, outlining, omission, note, omit, size, indirect speech, and tense, and person. All these points invite our attention to the main passage, that we should read it carefully. Definitely, when we want to do something important, it is either a critical reading or it is the reading with attention, one can say, that needs to be done in order to capture the main points. So when you are capturing the main points of the passage, you need to underline them. Now, in case of questions, if the questions are given at the end of the passage, the question would be helpful in finding out the main points, because mostly the questions are formed on the main points. But if the questions are not there, we need to read the passage very carefully and underline the main ideas. Now, from these main ideas, we need to make the outline of the précis in the same way as the outline of the essay is made by us. Once the outline is made, let us see if there are some extra words, needless words, some repetitions are there, or something which is example like that which you can omit. Let us go and omit it. But the main point should not be omitted at all. Then comes the matter of size. Technically speaking, most of the grammarians and composition makers agree on the point that the précis has to be 1/3 of the whole passage. And definitely, as the question answers of the questions were given, advice was that it should be done in indirect speech. Same is the case with the précis passage, that it should be done in indirect speech rather than the direct speech. It means that we cannot use commas and inverted commas type of style in writing of the précis. It has to be in the indirect speech. Then the tense and the person should be maintained. I mean, third person can be used, not the first person, not the second person. And then the tense, that when we will talk about third person, tense will definitely change in the past. So the précis needs to be done in the past tense if at all we can avoid in the present tense, or in other tense we should be avoiding the tense and bringing it to the past tense. Let's move on to the next slide and see what other advice is available. Yes, it is again some of the points of or the rules of making of the précis. One is the writing in your own words, definitely. Précis of a dialogue, even if you make it, you need to convert it into the passage-like situation where you need to write in precise way in your own words in creative way. And then you need to adopt the objective approach. I mean, you cannot write subjective approach. I say this, we say this. We need to use it in an objective way so that the message should read with respect to the object about which the thing is being written. The précis then has to be only in one paragraph. We cannot use 2 or 3 paragraphs. Some people would say no, 2 paragraphs are quite sufficient. No, or not at all. The précis has to be done only in one passage, because we need to develop one idea, one development of thought, and that should take place only in one passage. So before writing the passage of the précis, we should write a rough draft of the same and look at it carefully whether there is something extra, not needed, unnecessary. We may be removing that and bringing it to the final draft of the précis. Only then it can be done something very good. So it means that, in fact, now what we are having is that the précis has to be creative as much as possible. The précis has to be something with respect to the size as well, indirect also. The person is to be maintained. Then objective approach is to be followed. Only in one paragraph it should be written. And then do not go to the final draft. First make the rough draft, and after that go to the final draft. So these are some of the qualities of some of the rules with which you can make the précis. Now come to this slide, and it says about the qualities of a good précis. Now, when we have made it, what are the qualities, what are the visibilities in that précis which will make it a good précis? Definitely everyone can make a précis, but some people would be able to make a good précis, and surely the other people who have the less training or the aptitude, they may not be able to make it as good as possible. Now, what the examiner would like to see in the précis to call it a good précis, let us go into this slide and find out what this good précis can be. So first is the clarity. I mean, the thing which you are writing, it should be understandable to anyone. The reader may be able to have a good idea after reading the précis instead of getting confused what it has been written. So we should not, at the cost of clarity, develop the preciseness. The preciseness should be there, but it should be clear as well. The second thing is the correctness. I mean, this is something which in every writing is to be there. That is the correctness with respect to grammar principles, or with respect to the words, or the language, or whatever other technicalities we can use. I mean, we should write correctly. The sequence of tenses, the spells, or everything like that should be taken care of. In a précis, there is zero tolerance for writing anything wrong or violating the principles of grammar writing or the creative writing. Then comes objectivity. Definitely in the précis, the objectivity is very much important. You should remain 100% unbiased. You should not take the sides of anything. You should not let your own opinion overpower the objectivity of the passage. So, in that way, one can maintain the objectivity if one is immersed in the paragraph, one is totally involved into the paragraph. And if we are doing so, the objectivity will definitely come. And it's one of the good qualities of a good précis. There should be coherence. Most of the Pakistani writing, I'm sorry to say, they are not cohered. I mean, we write haphazardly. We don't take one point, try to explain that point. We bring as many points as possible into one passage, violating the whole coherence. So, coherence means that we may be able to join our ideas and the main theme. The connectedness should be created in all the sentences or within the sentence, and then the whole passage should be somehow creating just one impression, and that will be called as the coherence. The précis has to be cohered as well. Then comes the completeness of the précis paragraph. It should not give the sense that something has been omitted, which was necessary to be told and talked about inside the précis. We should go back to the paragraph, the main paragraph, and try to read that. What are the things there? And if we are omitting something which is necessary to clarify the meaning, it should be therefore complete in that way as well. Yes. Then lastly, it has to be concise. I mean, wordiness should not be there. I mean, one should use the brevity of the soul, as you call it, brevity of the soul. Brevity is the wit is the brevity. I forgot all that. Brevity is very much necessary that we should bring. But on the basis of brevity, we should not ignore clarity. We should not ignore completeness, etc. So brevity is to be brought there inside the précis as well. So these are some of the characteristics, the six basic characteristics with which we can say that the précis has become good. I may say that the writer may not be able to follow all these six, but at least one should try to do that. So if these 6 points are maintained in a précis, that précis can carry good marks as well. And after that, I need to take you to something next, and this is the type of example. I mean, this is the passage given to you, and the question is that read the following passage and answer the questions at the end. So these are the questions. I mean, suggest a subtitle. What type of people are afraid of death and why? How can we get rid of the fear of death? What idea do you form about Dr. Johnson from this passage? Explain the meaning of the word written in bold type. So these are the questions which are given, and after that, making of the précis there. Let's go into the passage and keep in mind these questions. So, I mean, what are the people? What are the type of people afraid of death? And then the second part is why. How can we get rid of the fear of death? So fear of death is the second point, and then comes the third one, Dr. Johnson's opinion, and after that, explanation of the meaning or the meaning of the words are there. Basically, there are 3 points only. One is that why people or what type of people feel fear of death. Second question is that how we can remove that fear of death. And then what does Johnson say about it? Let's keep these points in mind and read this text. A life of action and danger moderates the dread of death. So this is the way one can remove the fear of death by following the life of action and danger. It not only gives us fortitude to bear pain, but teaches us at every step the precarious tenure on which we hold our present being. Sedentary and studious men are the most apprehensive of this core. Now, these are the type of people. Sedentary, I mean, the easygoing people, and the studious men, and I mean, they are working hard. These people are afraid of that. Dr. Johnson was an instance in point. What is the opinion of Dr. Johnson? This begins here. A few years seemed to him soon over compared with those sweeping contemplations, the time infinity with which he had been used to pose himself. So this is the opinion of Dr. Johnson. So these 3 points are coming up here. Let's see if something more is said about these 3 points which are in the questions. In the still life of a man of letters, there was no obvious reason for a change. He might sit in an armchair and pour out cups of tea to all eternity. Would it had been possible for him to do so? The most rational cure, after all, for the inordinate fear of death is to set a just value on life. And here is the treatment: how you can get rid of the fears of death. If we were wished to continue on the scene to indulge our headstrong humor and tormenting passion, we had better be gone at once. And if we only cherish a fondness for existence, according to so in these last lines as well, some remedies are given. Now, these questions can be answered as I have pointed out some of the lines from there, the type of people who are sedentary and they may be fear of that. And after that, by quoting the example of Johnson, we can also say that they have some idea that life is going to be very long, but they fear that the life may be cut short. How can we get rid? By following that advice, which is in the passage. What idea do you form about Dr. Johnson? That he was also afraid of death, and then some bold words are to be explained. Let's go and see if the answers are there. Yes, these are. People who spend much time sitting and studying are the most afraid of death. So you can see how it is 100% wording different creativity used in order to tell what type of people. So instead of using sedentary, instead of using the reading people, the word has been using much time sitting people and studying people. And after that, because they want the peace and their peace is disturbed, they want no change in that, they are why has been answered. Then the next question is that the most sensible way of getting rid of the fear of death is to value life properly. I mean, we should give the value to our life it deserves. Not much, not less. So if we do so, definitely we can avoid. This is the thing is also said in the passage. In that way, the second question have also been answered. The third was about Dr. Johnson, what type of person he was. From the passage, we have learned that he was fearful of death. He did his life peacefully and wanted to know change. He was fond of tea as well. These things we have learned. And some of the words are also there. These words, meaning have been told. Precarious tenure, uncertain period of life, and inordinate fear. These words can also be understood even if we don't have the dictionary with us. The context of the passage goes to talk about the thing of the meaning of the difficult words as well. And now let's see how the Precis has been formed out. So these 3 points definitely would be taken inside the Precis as well. Like it says, if we lead an active life facing dangers, we will less fear of death. So if the lifestyle is active, not sedentary, we may be having good of life, value of life. People who lead a lazy and peaceful life are the most afraid of death. This is the second question. The most sensible way of getting rid of the fear of death is to value life. The third question. If we do not give unnecessary importance to our life, we will not feel the pangs of death. That's the learning that we have got out of the passage. In this way, 3 points have been united together, and the whole passage is connected with each other as well. For example, look at that. The people are fearful, the people who are peace-loving, easy people, they are fearful of death, and that connects with the past paragraph as well. Past sentence as well. If you look at the third sentence, it's the most sensible of getting rid of fear of death. So first 2 lines highlight the fear of death, and the third line also talks about the fear of death, but with the addition of getting rid of that. And again, getting rid of that is connected with the idea in the last sentence that if we value our life in a good way, we can get rid of that. So unnecessary importance to life if we give, then definitely death becomes fearful. So in that way, all sentences are connected together, and the whole passage is also complete because it goes to talk about the people who feel fear of death. Why do they feel fear of death, and what is the way to get rid of that? All these things have been talked in that. So in that way, it's a complete Precis, it's clear Precis, it gives the meaning as well. So that is the way how you can do that. And as far as the title is concerned, you can see the fear of death. Fear if death is written strong, the fear of death it is. So therefore, that's the very appropriate title of the passage as well. So in this way, the way is to make our Precis, and definitely it's going to be thank you here. And after that, I take you to the conclusive comments. That is the way to convert something into a Precis. I hope after watching all that, you might have got some encouragement. Believe me, you can make it. It's not a difficult art. It can be learned. Just, I have given you one exercise. Try 2, 3, 4 exercises. The best way is to first of all, take those exercises which provide you the solution so that you can compare your solution with the solution provided by the writer. With that way, you will be able to learn what is not being done by you, or what you are doing extra, or what you're not doing. And ultimately, you will yourself become very much expert to that, and you will be able to do those passages as well whose solution is not provided. So thank you very much for watching all that. It was the short lecture on Precis making and comprehension, and I hope that some of the people have enjoyed it and learned something out of that. So if you feel so that it was good, do not fail to hit the subscribe button and also like it. And then if you have further questions, then you can come up with the comments on the YouTube or on Facebook. I shall be trying to take up the questions later on. So thank you very much for all that. And here the time has come to say goodbye to you. That's it. And bye-bye.